I'm back to do my mid-month wrap-up for the month of August. August was a bit of a weird month. I traveled the first week and then I came back from Florida and I caught COVID. So it's been a bit of a weird month, to be very honest. I'm also participating in the Nexus event for the Avengers Reading Challenge, and I'm also participating in the Magical Readathon. I'm a mind walker, and that is my career. So I've been trying to read books for that. A lot of them changed, and I did the game a little bit wrong. So if those things pop up, I will definitely mention it to you. I'm also going to start every video by doing stats. So overall, so far in the month of August, I have read 14, well, I finished 13 things, but I had one DNF. Technically, it was 2 DNFs, but I did finish one, so 1 DNF. So yeah, the stats that I have, I read 7 physical books, 2 ebooks, 4 audiobooks, 4 new to me authors, 8 authors I've read before, 3 sequels. I count sequels also as companion books if they're in the same exact series. So I had 1 real sequel and then 2 companion books. And then I read 1 graphic novel, 4 YA, 5 middle grade, 3 adult, 1 reread, 1 non-white, let me double check. I think there's 3 non-white authors, and I read 1 LGBTQ plus thing. So let's get into the reads. I deviated pretty much from my TBR when I came back from Florida because I wasn't feeling my best and I was having a really hard time focusing, but let's get into it. The first book I finished in the month was Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this was my first read of the month. And it is my first time I read this author, and I have to admit, I'm definitely intrigued to read more. This book was a hard read, I will say that. You basically follow Enchanted Jones, and she is thrust into this entertainment industry. And the first chapter you see is Corey Fields is found dead, and Enchanted is the prime suspect in his murder that night. But then you flash to the... Sorry, I'm still dealing with a cough from COVID. But then you flash to the past and you see how they had this relationship. It is a toxic grooming relationship and it is really heartbreaking to read. And I think the grooming was done very, very well. She wrote it very, very well. But if I would say unhealthy relationship, grooming, sexual assault, abuse, all of these things are in this novel. And obviously there was death and murder. It was a really captivating read. I read it pretty quickly. I think I read it in 2 days. The ending is very abrupt and it leaves a very open ending, and I just wish there was a bit more information at the end of this book because I felt like there was a big reveal and then the book sort of just ended. So it was a good read. I probably would give it 4.5 stars for review. I just wanted a little bit more. But she wrote this book so well, and it really gave me an eye into that experience. So I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars, but the end was a little bit rushed for me overall. And then the next book that I read, I'm just trying to look at my notes so I don't forget anything. Oh, this was an e-arc. I messed up one of my prompts, so I was supposed to read 2 books that had the same word in the title, and then what I didn't realize was I had to read something else first. So I read these. They don't really count, but that's okay. I read The Reluctant Witch's Guide to Magic, and this was an e-arc that I had. So here's the cover. I got it from NetGalley, I believe, this one. A little bit of a daze for me because this was the day that I started not feeling good when I had COVID. So I remember reading this book, but I remember not feeling that connected to the characters, and I think that's why I only gave it 3 stars for review. But what I remember, again, that week was a little bit hazy, but I do remember it was about this girl, and she basically was a witch, and a witch in this time was very, very not allowed. And she sort of has this magic, and she sort of goes on an adventure to try to understand her magic, but she's really adamant that she's not a witch. It was fun. I just didn't feel that connected to the characters or the story. So that is why I only gave it 3 stars. But again, I wasn't feeling my best when I read this. And I also actually DNF'd a book before this because I was really confused with that one. And that is The Witches of Moonshine Manor. I'll put a picture of over here. DNF. Like, I got like maybe like 5% into it and I just wasn't feeling it. I was really confused. Again, I had a really hard time focusing when I did have COVID, like the first 4 days when I had COVID. So this was sort of like a luck shot, and I felt like at that point the only thing I really could read was middle grade, and that's why most of the books you're gonna see in the next couple little section is mostly middle grade that I physically read. So I did DNF this. I'll probably go back to it at some point, but I just didn't pick it up next. And the next book I read, going along with those prompts, this is the book that I read on the way home, was The Gingerbread Witch by Alexandra Overy. And this is the same author that wrote These Feathered Flames, and I love this book. Like, I thought it was so cute, and I read the e-arc of it, but I got a physical copy when I went to ALA. I thought this book was really, really cute. But you basically follow this girl named Maud, and she has been turned into a gingerbread. Well, she's a girl made out of gingerbread, and this witch named Agatha turned her into this. And one day she accidentally lets the protections down, and people come in and hurt Agatha and take Agatha. And she and her little creature friends have to go on an adventure to save the day and figure out what happened to Agatha, and she sort of goes on an adventure to sort of identify who she is as a person. And I love this book. I thought this book was so cute and so fun. And I loved Alexandra Overy's writing style. I just loved the setting. It was like a perfect summer, like early fall read. I'm going to do a reading recommendation for some fall books because this would be really, really fun for it. It also had a lot of creatures in it. And it was also a lot about prejudices. Like, sort of like The Reluctant Witch did also have prejudices in, but I just think Alex Overy did a little bit better. But also the creatures and like elements of found family and secrets and highs and lies that Agatha kept from Maud, but also like her ability to like save the day. And I thought it had a really nice cast of characters in the story, and I gave it like 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And this was when I started feeling like a little bit better when I was on the plane ride home. But my focus was still not the best. So, but I gave this one 4 stars and I enjoyed it. And then the next book that I read, this was during this time I also picked up an audiobook, and that is The Charm List by Julie Abe. So here's a photo of that. And then I went to Universal, and there was a day in between where I like did some errands. Went to Books A Million. I did a little bit of shopping, and on that trip, when I was wandering aimlessly, I finished The Charm List by Julie Abe. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. It reminds me a lot of the Potion Diary series. It just was a very, very light contemporary fantasy, and it followed this girl, and she has like magic. And there's a boy from her past that they sort of are forced to work together when a prank goes horribly wrong. And it's just like a very, very light story. Like, there is a lot of like, romance and friendship stuff. Like, there's a lot of like the secrecy of her world and how that happens. But I enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. There's not been anything I read by Julia that I haven't loved. And this book was just a very, very fun read. Like, it was very, very tasty. Like, it just was a sweet read. Like, there was a lot about baking and magic, and like, it just reminded me of like a small town. It reminded me of like Stars Hollow, but like with magic. It reminded me a lot of The Good Witch, the TV show that I really have enjoyed in the past. So I liked it. I gave it 5 stars. If you're looking for something really, really cute to read during, I think it's set in the summer. Like, it's like a summer road trip. There's a bucket list in this book, which I love a good bucket list. There's some friendship drama. There's enemies to more, and the way that Julie Abe did it, I really enjoyed it. I sometimes struggle with enemies to more, but I like this one. I gave it 5 stars, and I really hope we get more books set in this world because I really enjoyed it. And then after I read The Gingerbread Witch, I had another DNF that I don't have a picture of, but it's by Megan Miranda, and it's The Last to Vanish. And that, like, I read that on the plane ride, and I just had no focus for it. And that's when I knew I probably wasn't feeling my best. But that, I don't have a picture, but I did want to DNF that. I do want to go back to it in the fall, but I just was not in the mood to read it at that moment. And then the next book that I picked up, this is when I came home and knew I wasn't feeling well and was diagnosed with COVID. There was a Nexus event that you had to read books that were super short. And also for the Aurelium Readathon, I had to read a book that I didn't know that much about. So I picked up Coven by Jennifer Dugan. And this is a graphic novel that comes out in September. And it follows a girl named MZ. And she's always lived in California, but she's a part of a witch coven with her family, and something goes wrong in her old hometown. She has to go back there to sort of protect the town and sort of become, her mom has to become like the head witch, and she's very unhappy because she has to leave behind her girlfriend. This is LGBTQ+. I really loved it. I think that once we get a colored art style, it will be even more pretty. I got this from ALA. I gave it 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it. I think this will be, again, a really, really nice fall read. I'm going to make a video, but really, really fun. And I think that if you're looking for something like just to power through in the fall, I would definitely recommend this one because I really enjoyed it. And then the next book that I read, going along with my middle grade kick, called me. They only ever call me when I'm filming. When I'm not filming, no one calls me. But when I actually go to film something, they all call me. So, go figure. But I picked up How to Heal a Griffin by Meg Canistra. This was a fun read. It's set in Italy, which I think was great. Like, I love that. And I am Italian, so I love that. It's also set in like Christmas time, so I feel like if you're looking for a kind of unique Christmassy read, this would be a good one. But you basically follow this main character named Giada, and her whole family in Italy is healers for humans, and she does not want to be a healer for humans. She wants to be a healer for animals, and that's like very, very frowned upon. Her brother is a healer, her parents are a healer. And one day she winds up saving a griffin's life. And that leads her down a path to maybe becoming a healer. She has to work with her, her aunt to sort of get into that path, but then her brother is kidnapped and she has to go on an adventure to save him. And she has like new animal companions that are helping her. I loved it. I loved that at the heart of the story was a sister trying to save her brother, even though at the start of the book they had a very, very contentious relationship. I also love that there was a plus-size heroine in the story, and I really like that quite a bit. It was just like a unique representation. I love the focus on the animals, and I would love a book going farther into this series where like she actually has an opportunity to save more animals, because that was really such a limited part of the story. That's why it's only like a 3.75 star, but overall I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to pass this on to my students. It comes out in October, and you can see my review on my blog in early October. But I enjoyed it, and I think this would be a great book to read around Christmas time because that's when the book's set, and it was fun. And then the next book that I picked up was another middle grade. I was just on a kick. It was stuff easy to read, and I feel like this was another prompt I had to read, and I can't remember what it was for. But I picked up Shadowcast by Thomas Taylor. This is, again, another fall book. So, like, again, I have a lot that I was reading, and I didn't really even plan it. It just sort of happened. But this is the 3rd book in the Malamar series. I think that this is sort of a bridge book. I really like book 1, really like book 2, and I'm excited for book 4. But this book really did dive into, what's his name? Herbie's past. And someone from Herbie's past comes to town. But is it really someone from Herbie's past? I'll say that. And I enjoyed it. It was set right around Halloween. Again, it sort of gave me vibes of like a Stars Hollow small town or like a Good Witch small town. And I love books set in a small town. So I really enjoyed this one. I gave this book like 3 stars for review. I think it's probably the weakest of the series, but I do really like his writing style. And there are like a lot of pictures in this book as well. So, but I liked it. And I think that it's a really, really fun, eerie, and creepy series for kids that's not too scary. And I'm definitely excited for the last book in the series that I heard is coming out soon. I think it's actually coming out in September because I read this pretty late. I actually just got it from Owl Crate. And then the next books that I picked up were audiobooks. And this is when I started feeling a little bit better, and I was starting to like, put stuff away and organize and like do some stuff, because I literally came back, like normally like I prep the week before the month and I like do all my prep filming and stuff like that. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I had 2 audiobooks that I read, and they're both in the same series by Catherine Cowles. And I really like both of them. I think out of these 2, I probably like these 2 better than the first book in the series. Sorry for the weird explanation. But I picked up Perfect Wreckage by Catherine Cowles, and here is a photo. Hi friends, I'm back. So I'm sorry, I'm filming outside because my puppy refuses to come inside and I have to get this done. So the first book I picked up was Perfect Wreckage, and this followed Kenna and Crosby, and they have a very antagonistic relationship throughout the whole series. You definitely see it in book 1, but Kenna is dealing with a lot, and she sort of needs a lawyer, and Crosby sort of gets involved after a house is left to her and from someone that died recently, and a bigger, more well-to-known family is sort of trying to get her out of this house, and that person happens to be her ex-boyfriend, who she miscarried her baby. So there is massive trigger warning for that, for loss of a child and stuff like that, like a semi-abusive relationship, I would say. It just read that way to me. And then Crosby is sort of in the legal realm, and he is sort of trying to help her. There always is a little bit like romantic suspense at the end of these. This one, I think, did it okay. I think because like I am a thriller reader, like reading these romantic suspense. I know in the first book in the series, I thought it was like really over the top and cheesy. But they do have elements of romantic suspense. I like this. I gave this one like 4.5 stars. I think I liked it a lot better than the first book in the series, just because I wasn't the biggest fan of the hero and that he was like alpha male, and that's never my thing. But I liked it. I gave 4.5 stars, and I like the small town elements. I like taking to see the characters again. And the next book I picked up in this series was Wrecked Palace, which I think is my favorite by far. Was by far my favorite in the series. So this one follows Caitlin. I cannot remember the man's name, but she like sort of took responsibility for her younger siblings. Her mom and her dad were very, very involved in drugs, and she sort of in her youth took care of her siblings. Now they live with her, and she like takes care of them. And then the other character, who I literally cannot remember his name, he has a pretty damaged past. His parents and his sister died when he was younger, and he was sort of like teased and tormented, and no, he couldn't really trust everyone because everyone sort of sold him out to the media. And in the previous book, I think, he sort of punches someone out for someone, and that sort of gets her heckles up, and they just sort of like start connecting, and it was just really, really beautiful. They like rebuild the house together, and the relationship he had with her brothers and her sisters was just delightful. This romantic suspense, I think, was maybe the best out of all of them. I enjoyed it. Definitely my favorite of the series, and I really want to go back and kind of get the other 2. I got this as like an Audible deal, so I got all 3 books for one credit on Audible, which was totally worth it. Now I just have to like go buy the other 2 books. But very, very quick reads. I'm back in my house now. I always say that pure romance books are never my favorite thing because I just need a little bit more to a story. But these work for me. I enjoy them. I'll probably keep reading by this author in the future. Sorry, you're gonna see the devil dog behind me. She got in trouble because she wouldn't come in when I wanted her to. So you're gonna see her ears peeking up behind me. Well, she likes me again, so that's nice. But yeah, I definitely do like this series a little bit more than the other romantic books I've been reading recently, so they're definitely worth a check out. If you are like me and a little bit adult romance hesitant, I think this would be a good series for you to start with. The book that I picked up was The Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. This is a reread for me, and I did listen to the audiobook. This book might be one of my favorite books in this series. I've been doing a reread with Prophecy Radio. It's Karen and Kristen, and I really just love their podcast. Like, I will listen to them for hours because I feel like we're friends. They don't really know who I am, but I feel like we're friends, and it's just a fun podcast to listen to. But I think that this might be one of my favorite books in that series. I really am growing on this reread to adore this series. Like, I read this book for the first time when I was in college for the first time, so like 2007, 2008 is when I first read it. But I'm just learning like how much I love Rick Riordan as like a person, but also his books. And I think this book really did set up a solid ending to the series. Like The Last Olympian, we're gonna start that in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm really excited that I finished this, and I'm excited to move on to The Last Olympian. So this was definitely a 5-star read for me. That is no surprise. One of the magical readathon prompts was find a book that someone like that you follow didn't like that you think you would like. This was hard because I originally was planning on reading. I had two options for this. I was going to read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tam or Book of Night by Holly Black. I started reading this one and I just was struggling with it so much. So I put it down and then I said, okay, I'll pick up Book of Night by Holly Black. I really struggle with this one as well. So I put both the books down. And I was stuck because I knew this was a big prompt and I had to finish it. And I was just struggling. Like, I literally had no idea what I was going to pick up. So I eventually did finish Book of Night. I was reading these physically. And once I got the audiobooks, I think it helped a lot with Book of Night. But I remembered Haley in Brooklyn was not the biggest fan of Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. So I picked this book up and I adored it. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I was really happy that I picked it up. Again, I wish I probably would have read this in the winter because it is like a wintry setting. This is the companion book to the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. But you see one character in it. So you see one of the main characters is also in this book. But you follow a character named Evangeline. This book, again, like another one I'm going to talk about in my next wrap up, is beautifully written. Like stunning, quotes galore. Stunning book. But this one follows Evangeline, and at the start of the book, she wants to make a deal with a fate because something has happened in her romantic life that is unexpected. And when something happens with a fate, her life sort of takes a different course. And I love this book. I devoured it. I gave it 5 stars. It had elements to a story that I've never really read before. And the ending was shocking and surprising. So I am super excited for book 2. It's coming out in September. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And I'm so happy that Haley didn't like it as much so I could read it. But again, different tastes, different folks. But I really did like this book and happy that I finally picked it up. And then I did wind up going back and listening to Book of Night by Holly Black. I have conflicting thoughts about this book. Like, I really, really do. I don't know how I feel because it is an interesting concept. You basically follow this girl named Charlie, and she lives it's like an urban fantasy book, and it is the first book in a series, and I always say first books in a series are sort of the worst. This book is also just 300 pages, so I think for this story, I just needed it to be a little bit longer, a little bit fleshed out, and I didn't really feel that connected to the characters, and this is always more of a me thing. If you have really unlikable characters, and the story is just not capturing me, I'm gonna struggle. But this is a study that has shadow magic, and it's basically told past to present. So you see Charlie in the present. What she's doing is she's trying to track down one of her acquaintance's boyfriend, and there's a book involved, and she has to try to find the Book of the Night. And then you sort of see how she got to this place. It was okay. The pacing was weird. I didn't love it. I didn't really feel that connected to the characters. I got to the end. I was intrigued. I'll probably pick up book 2. It just didn't wow me. The audiobook was okay, but it just wasn't a book that like I wanted to read. So that's why I only gave it 3 stars for review. So take that for what it's worth. I liked it. I finished it. I just really struggled with it. And then the last book that I read in this reading, or this wrap-up, will be Skander and the Unicorn Thief by A.F. Stedman. This was another Nexus event prompt. I had to read a book. Oh, actually, and read a book with an orange cover for the Aurelium Readathon. Sorry, my puppy has decided to come visit. Or maybe not. Sorry, you'll see her ears in the background. But this one was, I had to read a book with an orange cover. So, and then I also had to do this for a Nexus event. So there was a lot happening that day, but it filled multiple prompts, and I love this book. I thought it was great. It's a unicorn fantasy, so you have this character named Skander, and it is his dream to be a unicorn rider. His sister before him could not become a unicorn rider. She didn't pass the test, and that is sort of weighing on her pretty heavily. But when he goes to take the test, he is denied. And that sort of sends him on an adventure where he does get invited to go to the Unicorn Society, and he is a unicorn rider, but it's under false pretenses. And I just love this book. I thought it was great. I flew through it, quotes galore. I loved the friendship elements of the story. I also love that the story was set over like a year, because I felt like I really got to know the characters. There was a lot happening in the story, and I loved it. There was twists and turns at the end that I didn't see coming. I'm super excited for book 2. I think, again, like I talked about the Battle of the Labyrinth early in this video, if you are a Percy Jackson fan and you or like books like that, I would pick this up because I think that you would really enjoy it. So yeah, that's all the books that I read for the first half of the month. I'm excited to see what I read in the second half of the month, because it's my last full month off before I have to go back to work. And I'm trying to prep film as much as I can. But let me know in the comments what was your best read of the month so far. For me, just looking at what I read, I really loved Once Upon a Broken Heart. I really loved Skander and the Unicorn Thief. And I really loved The Gingerbread Witch. Those are my 3 favorites. And the books that like I struggled with a little bit was A Reluctant Witch's Guide to Magic, obviously Book of Night, and Shadowcast. If I had to pick my least favorite book of the month, it was probably Book of Night by Holly Black, but that's just my opinion. I will talk to you guys for another video soon. Stay safe and stay well, friends, and tell me what was your favorite book you read so far this month, and I'll talk to you guys soon for my next video. Make sure you like and subscribe. I hate asking that, but I would really appreciate it, and follow me on all my other socials if you want to stay up to date on my daily reading life, especially Instagram and TikTok, because I'm posting there pretty much every single day. Bye, friends.